Hello, my name is Andrew Skibby, and right now I'd like to take a few minutes to discuss one of the finer points, one of the distinctive traits of classical education that sets it apart from other education models. It would be tough to put it simply if I began simply by telling you what I'm talking about right off the bat. So first I feel that it's necessary to explain the current system and why it fails in order to show why the classical system is necessary. The one who's called the father of the current education model is John Dewey. He was a man so intrigued with the idea of individuals operating in the context of a larger society that he based his entire life's work on that concept. He argues in his 1915 publication, The School and Society, that students must be educated to fit the societal needs of the time. Dewey is writing this at the peak of the industrialization in America. At the turn of the century, the nation was building and producing more than ever before in factories. Henry Ford, with his introduction of the assembly line, transformed the industries of America. So Dewey looked at the way the society was moving and modeled a system of education that resembled it. It starts by producing children in batches, or simply by age, with little to no regard of the skill, interest, or preference of the student. Then, things like bells that ring in the same way a factory does to signal moving from place to place, signal children moving from class to class. Each room in a school and each facility is separate, like a factory would be. And not to mention the need in production for standardization. That's shown in the testing of students, and if they don't meet the quality control of the test, they're penalized. The most crucial thing in the education process, well, is the education itself. In school, each topic now is divided up and separated, cut from the others, not teaching any correlation between one or another. This is very factory-like. No student is taught how, say, the writer of a book in English class may have been affected by the events and situations of his life in that historical period. So now enters the classical model. Each subject is linked. There's no division of math, science, or literature class. The subjects are taught in a way that truly brings out the relationships between the subjects through history. Each of the trivium will find its way through the history of Western civilization from the Greeks to modern day by reading heavily books from history in a chronological order. By the time a classically educated student graduates, they will have gone through the entire history of the Western world 3 times, each time getting something different out of it in a way that relates to the trivium that the student is in. For example, it would be foolish to teach a student about historical facts of the Reformation, but never explain why it happened, or read books from people writing during that time. It's simply a tragedy that so many things have been cut up and split in education, because it would really be tough for a student to understand why Galileo had to be under house arrest as taught in history class, while not at the same time learning the scientific ideas and discoveries he made, and in religious class reading about the state of the Catholic Church at the time, and why they did not like Galileo's discoveries. Each element plays a crucial role in supporting the next subject. From this learning style, one is not simply consumed with facts from math, science, history, or English, but rather one will begin to think critically about the effects of the actions being made. It's one thing for Dewey to suggest that the schools ought to represent the societal needs. To a point, it's easy to agree with that. But in reality, does anyone know what our world is going to look like in 5 years? Or 10? Well, the student entering kindergarten this year will not be finishing college until the late 2020s to early 2030s. How can we possibly begin to educate them and train them for a society that we have absolutely no idea what it will look like? Rather, if students are trained to look into history, understand the causes and effects, what things worked and which things didn't work, then they will be trained to think critically about their actions and how those will affect them in the immediate context, in the long run, and how it will affect those to come in generations after. It's so important to integrate history as the backbone of education, because as you can remember the quote by George